You may have heard moments ago with Ian Rappaport. There's kind of a big story developing. We'll call this a developing story. Go figure. And it's a developing story in Oakland, where Ian tells us that Antonio Brown will be disciplined by the Raiders after an altercation with general manager Mike Mayock. This altercation seemingly after AB's Instagram post yesterday of a fine letter, a standard fine letter from the general manager, Ian Rappaport, totaling $54,000. There were 2 days in question. August 22nd, which was the day that Mayock turned to the cameras and said either AB is in or he's out, but we have to decide right now. And the day, I beg your pardon, it wasn't the 22nd was the day in Winnipeg in which he was not there for a walkthrough for the Raiders' third preseason game. Anyway, $54,000. Where do we stand now?
Well, what we know is that Antonio Brown is going to be disciplined for an altercation, a heated argument with Mike Mayock, something that players witnessed, something that players actually got involved in. This happened Wednesday, so yesterday, after Antonio Brown posted the fine letter, which is generally kept very private, on Instagram for everyone to see, something that obviously generated a lot of discussion yesterday. Mayock does not like that. He likes keeping things very in-house. Anyone who saw Hard Knocks can certainly attest to that. So those two got into it. What we know, Andrew, is that practice is going to start in less than 30 minutes, still trying to figure out what actual discipline is coming. Is it a suspension, or is it simply the team saying this is the last stand? You really have to listen right now. Still waiting on firm confirmation of what is coming, but something is coming for Antonio Brown. And if it is a suspension and they can prove that it has been a pattern, then they will likely come after his $30 million guaranteed on his new contract.
Well, considering when Mayock looked at the camera and said either you're in or you're out, you'd have to think that there is a pattern developing here. And the guy kind of went AWOL after the whole thing.
They have two instances, yeah.
Yeah, two, and the guy was kind of nowhere to be seen while he was trying to get his feet back in shape. Ian, stay there. Mike Silver is on the phone with us as well. Mike, what can you add to this Raiders-Antonio Brown thing?
Well, Andrew, Ian is absolutely right. There was an incident that happened yesterday on the practice field in full view of a lot of people, and players were involved. And, you can imagine, we know Mike Mayock from NFL Network. He's a very blunt, headstrong guy. Antonio Brown clearly had issues with being fined, dropping words like devil in his social media post and posting the fine letters. And I think the Raiders have gone through several stages on this. And by the Raiders, I mean the Raiders' decision makers, John Gruden and Mike Mayock. It started with, wow, this guy's a little out there, but we can manage it. Then it was, we have a problem, but if we're really, really nice to him and we just tell him we're on his side, he'll be okay. Then they went the good cop, bad cop route with Mike Mayock obviously playing the bad cop. But I cannot see this at this point being salvageable. This is a situation where you have one player adhering to a completely different set of rules in multiple areas, and you're trying to run an operation. And I would just, ask people to extrapolate this to their work situation. Imagine just deciding to leave, going AWOL, and then not telling your employer, coming back, getting disciplined for it, going public with a rant, and then apparently having a confrontation with the manager in full view of other employees. It's not a very good situation. And look at the Raiders' history for decades. You think they'll go after the money? I think it's a pretty good bet that if this degenerates the way I think it will, they will absolutely try to get every dollar back that they can from Antonio Brown.
All right, Vic Tafur from The Athletic, who has covered the Raiders for a long, long time, is reporting on Twitter that multiple players had to hold Antonio Brown back during this confrontation on the field yesterday with Mike Mayock. We cannot independently confirm that, just passing that one along. We did not have AB on the podium yesterday. That was allegedly going to happen today. I would guess, Silver, that doesn't now happen today.
I do not believe. I mean, I've been covering the league a long time. Things can change and situations are fluid. My instincts tell me that I would be shocked if Antonio Brown plays a game in a Raider uniform. Obviously, I've seen, bigger turnabouts, and he certainly has a chance to, if suspended and or disciplined in other ways, to cool out and consider his options and try to mend fences. But I believe that the Raiders have an untenable situation, and that at some point you have to run an operation that is collectively trying to accomplish goals. And we all saw John Gruden on Hard Knocks, knock on wood if you're with me, and trying to forge togetherness and create a new culture and turn around a franchise. How can you do that when you've got one guy who not only is completely playing by his own rules, but is angry about it and incendiary? At the very least, we don't know how this confrontation went down yet, but at the very least, when confronted face-to-face with a headstrong manager in Mike Mayock, took offense to it, to the point where teammates were involved. And listen, Vic Tafer is one of the best reporters in America, so I am inclined to believe what he reports, and that is a pretty jarring situation. In Oakland, decades ago, there was the Latrell Sprewell, PJ Carlissimo situation. Thankfully, that didn't happen there, but this sounds like it was potentially one step removed from that.
Well, Ian, I can't imagine this is the first time Antonio Brown has been fined in his career. I saw that letter yesterday. Obviously, the world did. There was nothing out of the ordinary in that letter. It was a basic fine letter, but it did kind of include the warning, if you keep on doing this, there will be more fines and other potential discipline.
Yeah, and it should be noted now, while the Steelers kind of kept Antonio Brown in line for seemingly as long as they possibly could until they could no longer do so Week 17 last year, they're not really an organization that fines many players. They deal with it in other ways, but they are not a big fine organization. So it may actually be a rare time in Antonio Brown's career when he got fined. He posted it on Instagram, and Mike Mayock just does not like these kinds of things. He also is someone who's been very, for those of us who've known him, very demonstrative in the way he speaks and what he believes. Maybe not a surprise that these two decided to kind of get into it. And, adding to what Silver said, it does seem like a lot of players saw this and helped kind of bring the situation down, whether grabbing one or the other, just kind of getting everyone to cool it a little bit. Also should be noted, it's not the first time in NFL history that a player has yelled at a coach or a team official. The real question is, how serious did it actually get? Because, look, we've seen blow-ups on the sideline. We've seen plenty of them. The Patriots have built a dynasty on things such as Tom Brady screaming at Bill O'Brien in his face and all of us seeing it on national TV. Really what we need to know is, how serious did it get, and are they actually going to suspend him?
When Tom Brady, though, screamed at Bill O'Brien on national TV, it wasn't after showing up at the game at a hot air balloon, then going AWOL for a couple of weeks while trying to fix your feet that you messed up in a cryo machine in France, right?
We don't think.
Okay. I'm just trying to remember.
I don't know that for sure.
Regardless. And it also does bring to mind the John Gruden, Keyshawn Johnson suspension in 2003 for conduct detrimental. Let's jump at the Wayback Machine with NFL Films a little bit later on that one.